Well, over the years, we've witnessed the realities and the results due to mental illness. This year, we lost NYPD officer Minnesota's Familia, who was fatally shot and killed by a mentally ill person. Many, including our guests today, have pushed for an extension of Kendras Law, a law set in place to give the judge authority over those who meet certain requirements to undergo psychiatric treatment. Now, here to shed light on this issue, we welcome now Assemblyman Victor Pichardo and licensed clinical social worker Lyrica Fils-Amie. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Our pleasure.
Good. So, Assemblyman Pichardo, first of all, give us the update as to where Kendras Law is today, right now.
Sure. So basically right now, the Senate passed a permanent extension of the law. I believe it was sponsored by Senator Young, Republican senator from upstate New York. The companion bill, I believe, that we passed in our House was just simply a 5-year extension. So that's kind of where we are in the legislature. So we agree that we need to extend it. The disagreement within our House is that we need to have it have a sunset clause, so we have to review it and revisit every 5 years. And the Senate believes that we should just permanently extend it. But we do agree that we do need to extend this law and renew this law.
Lyrica, the importance of having this law on the books and the importance of having this law enacted.
Yeah, I think this law is extremely important. I think it's also tricky to just have it be done right. And so I think the sunset clause is really important.
Mm-hmm. And when we talk about mental illness being prevalent, and we see many cases where it's actually involved, for those people who don't know exactly what Kendras Law would do, would you give us an overview?
Yeah, so if somebody is considered a threat to themselves or to others, it would help to be able to have assisted outpatient treatment for that person. I think the tricky thing is if they break the plan or they go MIA, then there's criteria that I think was just enacted to be able to make sure that those people still stay safe and get the treatment that they need.
Sure.
And unfortunately, when it comes to mental illness, it does not get the attention it deserves until cases like we talked about with Officer Familia occur, and then we see more of a, an awareness, more of a push. Talk to us a little bit about shedding light on mental health and the fact of how important it is for us to really address these issues.
Well, first and foremost, I believe that any person who puts a priority on anything is usually where the money is allocated to. In the state legislature, we in the Assembly have pushed to make sure that mental health is on the top of our priority, and that is fully funded and to a degree where, folks like the young lady to my left is able to do the work that she needs to do, as well as the Office of Mental Health. But unfortunately, within the song and dance of the legislative budget and the negotiations, some of that money is wrapped into pet projects for other legislators, unfortunately. And we need to stop that practice, but more importantly, we need to make sure that mental health programs are fully funded to the degree that what they need to, so that, tragedies that happen to Detective Familia, but besides that, tragedies are happening every day. There are folks who need help and can't get help, not because of the force of law, but rather that there's not enough funding to make sure that these folks get the services that they need and they deserve.
No, with all due respect to the Assemblyman who's sitting here, a lot of people in state government, city government do politicize this, and it becomes caught up in the political balance. You spend a lot more time with boots on the ground dealing with people who have mental illness. What are the things that we're actually missing when it comes to understanding some of the plight and some of the challenges of dealing with mental illness in our community?
Well, I think there's two things. I think for serious mental illness, the issues go beyond just treatment. So it might be food or housing or other factors that affect their livelihood and being able to survive in the community. And then I think the other part of this is that, and this affects any community, the stigma of mental health. People are not interested in getting treatment. Some people are, but when there is a real problem, oftentimes people are not interested in that course, and they don't want to be forced to take medication or all of those things. So,
and there's a big stigma in communities of color.
Yeah, absolutely, and also in white communities. So I think it's an affliction that affects any community. People don't really want to be seen as a person who's getting treatment. Yeah.
Well, and I absolutely agree 1,000%. There is the stigma associated to mental health and mental health issues that not only our communities, but it doesn't matter, race, creed, sexual orientation, religion, that is, people are affected by. And we need to make sure that folks who need help get help, but more importantly, we need to support those who are given the help that are giving help to folks who need it have the resources that they need to make sure that that work is done.
How optimistic are we that this can move through both the Senate real quick?
Well, I think in the Senate, there's obviously an interest in it. I disagree on sort of the tactics that the upper chamber is taking, but I agree in a sense with its goal. And I know that in the Assembly, what we try to do is balance fairness, equity, access, and just a more of a holistic approach when it comes to mental health issues than our counterparts at least in the Republican majority in the Senate. And I know that when we reconvene in Albany in January, this is probably going to be one of the top priorities besides, funding for the MTA and other priority issues for the legislature, to make sure that we continue to discuss this and we approach this in a way that it creates maximizes the good and make sure that folks who need the resources to have access to the resources they need get those resources.
Mental illness, of course, comes in many different forms. Can you educate our viewers a little bit about, some of the different forms of mental illness that are commonly dealt with?
So there's serious disorders, which would be something like a personality disorder, and those are harder to treat. And then there are times in our lives where we experience different symptoms of disorders. So you could be depressed at some point in your life, and that could reoccur, or that could be something that you experience throughout your life. And so I think mental illness is really hard, and the fact that we go to the dentist and we go to the doctor for our healthy bodies, we also need to go for our minds. Yeah.
I heard someone once say that, we care for our bodies a lot. We spend a lot of time caring for our bodies, but also caring for our mind is equally as important as caring for any other part of our body, because it's one of the most vital things next to our heart.
Yep.
Agreed.
Yeah. So as we look forward now, Kendras Law is making its way towards the Senate. We'll, of course, keep you updated on that. Now, is there anything the public can do in terms of helping to support this process where it is right now?
I think in any instance, if it's Kendras Law or anything else, funding for the MTA or any issue that the government needs to take center focus on, is to lobby their legislator, lobby their local state senator, lobby their local state assembly member, and in the city of New York, lobby your member of the city council. We need to make sure that this is an issue and a priority for the folks that we serve, and we need our constituents. And if you live in Orleans or in Binghamton or in Buffalo or in Armaya or anywhere in the state, just to lobby your legislator and make sure that we continue the pressure to make sure that we pass this law, but we pass it in a way that it helps the most folks who need it, and that we can review it on a regular basis to make sure that what we're doing is doing the right thing.
Lyrica, I'm going to give you the final word for those people who may be watching right now, maybe have a family member or even themselves maybe dealing with mental illness or struggling with mental illness. What advice do you give?
I think the most important thing is to just get help, and if you don't like the service that you're getting help from, to get help from another service. There's plenty of places to get help, and so trying different things to find out what works.
Lyrica, Diane Fils-Amie, and Assemblyman Victor Pichardo have been our guests here talking about Kendras Law. Of course, we want to get you connected. You saw the information at the bottom of the screen, how you can get connected, find out more information.
Sure.
Thank you both for coming and sharing, and of course, as this goes forward, we want to bring you back.
Happy to be back.
All right, Assemblyman Pichardo.
Sounds
Lyrica,
good.
thank you so much. All right.
Thank you.
Taking a quick break. We'll be back. More shows. Stay with us. We're coming right back right after this.